For regular videos on ancient cultures and forgotten civilizations, please subscribe. I was just listening to my voicemails, and I thought you might find this one interesting. Let's hear what they have to say.
Hello, David. Following your fascinating video on the decipherment of cuneiform, I was wondering, what was the process for the decipherment of the Maya script, the Mayan hieroglyphics, and therefore their language that lies behind it? Be curious to hear. Thank you.
And thank you for your question. Yes, the decipherment of Maya writing is one of the great achievements of the past century. I'll tell you what happened to the best of my knowledge. The earliest known Maya texts date back to the 3rd century BCE, and glyphic writing continued all the way up until the time of the Spanish conquest, although it is possible that the tradition of writing with hieroglyphs remained until the 17th century in regions that remained far removed from Spanish control. It is estimated that there are more than 5,000 individual texts, including those that have been discovered archaeologically and those found in public and private collections around the world. Most of these texts were written during the Classic period, 200 to 900 CE, on ceramic vessels and on stone monuments, such as stelae and stone lintels. Hieroglyphs also appear on other media, such as codices, wooden lintels, facades, interior walls of buildings and caves, shells, bones, jade, obsidian, and clay objects. The Maya hieroglyphic writing system consists of more than 1,000 different signs. However, many of them are variations of the same sign, allographs, different elements but with the same reading, homophones, or variants that were used in a certain period or in a certain area. Therefore, the total number of hieroglyphs used at a given time did not exceed 500. The Maya writing system can be described linguistically as a logosyllabic system, composed of signs that represent whole words, logograms, or that represent syllables. There are about 80 phonetic syllables in the classic Maya language, but because there are many homophones, there are more than 200 syllabic graphemes in the script. When compared with other Mesoamerican writing systems, the one used by the Maya could better record the complex syntax present in the oral manifestations of their language. In practice, however, the writing system developed abbreviations of highly complex syntactic structures, requiring us to reconstruct the omitted elements that ancient readers familiar with the language would have had no problem with. The story of the decipherment of the Maya script is an exciting tale spanning nearly 5 centuries, during which an understanding of a writing system that at first glance appeared to be unimaginably strange has been sought. In 1839, American writer and traveler John Lloyd Stephens, along with English draftsman Frederick Catherwood, had left New York for the Maya area via Belize. From 1839 to 1842, in successive annual trips, they explored Maya ruins, wrote articles, sketched maps, and made sketches of ancient sculptures and buildings. Thanks to their efforts, the lost cities of the Maya were made known to the general public in 2 lavishly illustrated volumes, Incidents of Travel in Central America, Chiapas and Yucatan, 1841, and Incidents of Travel in Yucatan, 1843. In the first of these, Stephens wrote, quote, "One thing I believe is that their history is engraved on their monuments. No Champollion has yet brought to them the energies of this investigating mind. Who will read them?" Unquote. This challenge was proposed by Stephens due to the decipherment of the Egyptian script by Jean-Francois Champollion only a few decades before the publication of his book. However, in Stephens' time, no Rosetta Stone was available in the fledgling field of Mayan studies. All this changed in 1862 when a French clergyman, Charles-Étienne Brasseur de Bourbourg, while searching for research material on the New World at the Royal Academy of History in Madrid, found a manuscript entitled Relación de las Cosas de Yucatán, written by Bishop Diego de Landa. 2 years later, Brasseur de Bourbourg published the manuscript in a bilingual Spanish and French edition. The discovery of Landa's work made researchers both skeptical and mesmerized by the possibilities of their Rosetta Stone. All the excitement was because on one of the pages was Landa's description of what he thought were Mayan alphabetic characters. But the Landa alphabet, as it was called, was considered by many to show a lack of understanding on the part of the Spanish clergy of the Maya language, which it really was to a certain extent. So it was assumed that this alphabet was of no use. Consequently, no attempt at decipherment worth mentioning was undertaken during the century that followed. One of the problems consisted in the belief from the late 19th century until 1950 that the Maya script was purely alphabetic or purely phonetic, or for that matter, simply logographic. At first, researchers tried to apply Landa's alphabet directly to the Maya script without success. It was noticed that logograms appearing in Landa's work represented calendrical signs, so they were beginning to realize that this system could not be completely phonetic. By the 1950s, research on Maya glyphic writing was advancing steadily, especially in aspects related to those parts of the text with calendrical content. Perhaps as a direct consequence of this, the ideas that took firm root considered it purely logographic. All attempts to read Maya hieroglyphs phonetically were doomed to failure, or in other words, rejected by the most influential specialists of the time, largely due to the unsuccessful attempts of linguists such as Benjamin Lee Whorf at demonstrating that Maya writing was provided with both phonetic and logographic signs. Eric Thompson wrote in Maya Hieroglyphic Writing, An Introduction, published in 1950, the following comment, which demonstrates the unpopularity among scholars at the time of interpreting any of the signs as phonetic. Quote, I have tried to ignore Whorf's attempts to read Maya hieroglyphic writing, inasmuch as I assume that all students of the field will have sent those ideas into the same limbo where the discredited interpretations of Brasser de Boerberg are to be found. Unquote. Along the same lines, an idea that prevailed in the academic circles of the time was that the content of the inscriptions was almost exclusively astronomical and did not deal with historical matters. This is not to say everyone agreed. As early as the 19th century, a handful of researchers were exploring other possibilities, but so far, none of them was able to find a systematic method to clarify their ideas. All of this changed in the early 1950s when Yuri Knorozov, a researcher at the Leningrad Institute of Ethnology, tried again with the Landa alphabet, comparing it with the few copies available at the time of the 3 known Maya codices, with those found and rescued by the Red Army in 1945 in Berlin. The method employed by Knorozov consisted of studying different writing systems that had already been deciphered. Based on the features they shared among them, and on the number of signs used by each of them, Knorozov proposed that the Maya script was composed of logograms and phonetic signs. It appeared to be broadly similar to the Japanese writing system. Thus, Knorozov began to test his ideas by using the Landa alphabet as if it consisted, at least in part, of syllables instead of alphabetic signs. The syllabic approach was supported by the fact that it was a common feature of other ancient writing systems that had already been deciphered. Knorozov applied some of these signs directly to their corresponding signs in the codices. For example, on one of the graphemes present in the codices was that corresponding to the ku of Landa, followed by a sign whose reading was unknown at the time. Both elements appeared above the figure of a turkey, so he assumed that these glyphs referred to the animal represented below them. This assumption was justified since it was observed that this compound appeared repeatedly next to representations of this animal in the codices. The word for turkey in Old Yucatecan Mayan is kuts. Knorozov thought that the first of the signs should represent the syllable ku, which also appeared in Landa's alphabet, while the second should read tsu, but assuming that the last vowel should be suppressed, since most Mayan words end in a consonant. Knorozov concluded that the signs should be written kutsu and read kuts. In order to verify this, he looked for a glyphic compound beginning with tsu, finding that it appeared over the figure of a dog, which is tsul in Yucatecan Mayan, so he deduced that the elements of this compound should read tsu and lu, with the final vowel being silent. The sign Lu appears in the Landa alphabet as the letter L, by the way. Knorozov continued to apply this method to the codices, obtaining good results, which began to cause a division within Western academia dedicated to the investigation of the Mayan script. This theoretical framework, quite simple in essence, together with the associated method, provided the necessary keys to obtain phonetic readings of various glyphs, and it changed the course of research in Maya epigraphy. However, the change did not become visible until 2 decades later, largely due to the political scenario marked by the Cold War and the Iron Curtain, as well as language barriers and lack of communication between schools of thought. Now, what about the content of the inscriptions? Well, the great names in the field of ancient Maya culture research, J. Eric S. Thompson and Sylvanus G. Morley, were asserting that the corpus of inscriptions contained only calendrical content without any historical information. Likewise, these scholars maintained that the texts recorded in ceramics were simple copies of the monumental inscriptions without any type of meaning or linguistic value of their own. They were wrong. In 1960, Tatyana Proskuryakov, an American of Russian background, published for the first time evidence showing that the inscriptions contained historical records. Proskuryakov noted a peculiar pattern of dates on monumental stone inscriptions at the classic Maya site of Piedras Negras. She determined that these represented events in the life of an individual, rather than being related to religion, astronomy, or prophecy, as held by the old school. This proved to be true for many Maya inscriptions and revealed that Maya epigraphic records were telling actual stories of rulers, stories of dynasties, similar in nature to those recorded in literate human cultures around the world. Suddenly, the Maya had entered the realm of written history. Although it was already clear what was in many Maya inscriptions, they could not yet be literally read. Nevertheless, further progress was made during the 1960s and 70s using a multitude of approaches, including pattern analysis, Landa's alphabet, and Knorozov's findings. In the history of Maya decipherment, the work of archaeologists, art historians, epigraphers, linguists, and anthropologists could not be separated. All contributed to a truly and essentially multidisciplinary process. Findings were made in the 1970s, particularly at the first Palenque Roundtable, an academic conference organized by Merle Green Robertson at the classic Maya site of Palenque in December 1973. A working group was led by Linda Sheely, an art historian and epigrapher at the University of Texas at Austin, which included Floyd Lounsbury, a linguist at Yale University, and Peter Matthews, then a student of David H. Kelly at the University of Calgary, whom Kelly sent because he was unable to attend. In one afternoon, they managed to decipher the first dynastic list of Maya kings, the ancient kings of the city of Palenque. By identifying a sign as an important royal title, read Kiinich, the group was able to identify and read the lives from birth to ascension to the throne to death of 6 kings of Palenque. From that point, progress continued at an exponential pace, not only in deciphering Maya glyphs, but also towards building a new understanding of Maya civilization based on history. A decisive event that helped shift the wind of public opinion in favor of the new approach occurred in 1986 in an exhibition entitled The Blood of Kings, A New Interpretation of Maya Art. This was organized by Intercultura and the Kimball Art Museum and was curated by Linda Sheely and Yale art historian Mary Miller. This exhibition and the catalog for attendees, with international publicity, revealed to a vast audience the new world that had recently opened up, thanks to the breakthrough in the decipherment of Maya inscriptions. Now, not only could a real history of ancient America be read and understood, but this shed light on the material remains of the Maya and showed them as real and recognizable persons. They were revealed as a people with a written history like that of other human societies, full of wars, dynastic struggles, shifting political alliances, complex religious and artistic systems, expressions of personal ownership and sovereignty, and so on. Plus, the new interpretation, as the exhibition demonstrated, made sense of many works of art whose meaning had been obscure, and showed how the material culture of the Maya represented a fully integrated cultural system and world view. Gone was Thompson's old view of the Maya as peaceful astronomers without conflict or other attributes characteristic of most human societies. With this theoretical framework, a lot of deciphering has been done since the 1980s, so much so that now we're already able to understand the sound of about 90% and the meaning of about 80% of the Mayan glyphs. The decipherment of the Mayan language is a fascinating tale that shows how much scholars from different fields can achieve when working together. I hope that answered your question. If anyone else would like to ask me a question about ancient history, you can leave it on my voicemail at speakpipe.com/David Miano, and maybe I will answer it in a video. And if you'd like to support this channel, you can become a patron at patreon.com/World of Antiquity. Thank you so much to my existing patrons. Or if you just want to make a simple one-time donation, you can click on the Super Thanks button below. You might like my little e-booklet, Why Ancient History Matters. It's designed to persuade people that the subject is important, even in the modern world. You might also wish to use it to help spread the word. So feel free to share it with someone you know. It's free for anyone who wants it. I've left a link in the description box below the video for you to grab a copy. Catch you later.